Oh man, this has been fun. This has been a lot of fun actually. It's interesting how much my first time doing this. I know Emily told me I'd be spent by the end of the day. It's fun, it's exciting. I'm tired, but not like I feel like I'm gonna have a hard time sleeping tonight with just all
Right.
this information and everything just bouncing around and the excitement. There's been so many great things shared here, and now I'm super excited to introduce you. If you don't know, I work on the same team as Curtis. I get to see a lot of Curtis's genius on a day-to-day basis. But he is the head of analytics engineering for Pluralsight, and his product experience helps make the data inform, essentially make data informed decisions for the organization. Also, within the public space, the Tableau public space, Curtis is a public ambassador. He's won the Iron Viz Championship in 2016, which I think was a tough year. And just recently, he's putting a lot of his energy into tutorial videos in an effort to build that next wave of Tableau experts. If there really is anyone who can close us out tonight and really make it entertaining, yeah, I love it. I love it. Humility. It is Curtis Harris. I am so happy to introduce you, and I will let you go through and take it away.
Okay, great. Thank you, Caesar. That was really amazing. Flattered all the kind of things you said. Again, I'm Curtis Harris. As Caesar said, I am the head of experienced analytics engineering at Pluralsight, and I'm really excited that you're here to close out TFF with the light side of dashboarding. Wait a minute. Did you mess with my slides, Caesar? Can I get a little help here?
Sorry.
All right, that's better, much better. Thanks, Caesar. We're here to talk about the dark side of dashboarding. But why should you care? Well, for one, dark dashboards are hot, hotter than Hansel ever was. Two, dark dashboards are simply fun to build, but maybe not that fun. The Star Wars puns? Seriously, Caesar, you have to stop messing with my slides. That will be the last reference to Star Wars today. And perhaps most importantly, dark dashboards push your formatting skills and they push your design skills. And these are the two aspects we're going to spend most of our time on today. How you can use dark dashboards as an avenue to grow your skills and close your Tableau skill gap. How can you challenge yourself by simply turning off the lights in Tableau? So to start, let's take just a minute to browse one of the long list categories in this year's Information is Beautiful Awards. And what we're looking at is the Science and Technology category. And as you watch this page scroll, think to yourself, are you noticing anything? Other than quick glances at some amazing works of data art, you might have noticed a high percentage of these entries were laid out on dark backgrounds. And as we narrow our focus to the center column, we don't see a single entry built on top of a white background. Now, this is of course because science and tech topics lend to a quote unquote cooler design theme, but regardless, dark dashboards are becoming more commonplace than ever before, and you can't really help but to notice them. So with this being said, let's hop over to Tableau and spend some time dissecting a very famous dashboard. Do you notice this dashboard? If not, well, this is what you'd see if you opened up the Superstore workbook that comes packaged with every Tableau installation. And let's give our friends over at Tableau some credit. The default settings are pretty damn good. We can see some potentially unnecessary borders, but they're subtle and they're pushed to the background. No big deal. We can see some grid lines, but they're even more subtle than the borders, and they don't cause much clutter at all. No big deal. All the text throughout the entire dashboard is readable. It's not too black, it's not too gray, It's just right. Tableau has put an amazing effort into setting up beginners for success. But let's see what happens when we turn out the lights on this dashboard. The only setting that I changed was the background color, the only setting. And now we see loud borders that clearly take the focus off the data and create a substantial amount of clutter. Loud grid lines, again, clearly taking the focus off the data and creating a massive amount of clutter. And unreadable text generally throughout the entire dashboard. While Tableau has done an amazing job at pre-formatting white dashboards, dark dashboards haven't been given a second glance. The onus is on you to decide what good formatting and good design is. If we take a second look at this dashboard, I found 15 easily fixable opportunities. And with that, here's 15 seconds for you to think about where this dashboard could be improved. Okay, hopefully you have some thoughts in your head about where this could be improved. And here's what I found right off the bat. We found an unreadable dashboard title, unreadable column headers, unreadable measure values, a clunky border that adds 0 value, a clunky map border also adding 0 value, an unreadable worksheet title, slightly too dark headers, extremely loud grid lines that add 0 value, another unreadable worksheet title, more dark headers, more loud grid lines, and axis labels that are all just a tad too dark. 15 immediate opportunities for improvement, and they're all low-hanging fruit if you know what to do. So let's step through some of these and go over ways we can improve the experience, starting with point number 1, the title. And while we're at it, let's just talk about font color in general. Like we talked about earlier, Tableau has optimized their defaults for a white background, and some of those settings carry over, completely ignoring that you have switched to a dark background. Font color being one of the biggest culprits. One simple trick you can employ is the one to the right theory, as I'm calling it. Tableau typically defaults to the 3rd and 5th blacks from the top for font color, so we can assume that the 3rd and 5th whites from the top are likely a good choice if you went from a white to a black background. Notice how you go straight diagonal. If you have a black background, go to the white palette. If you have a white background, go to the black palette. And it's the 3rd and 5th from the top both times, and it provides a pretty good outcome. So I'm coining this the one to the right theory. It's pretty dumb, but it works. Another methodology that I like to employ is alternating my font weights. A dark background gives us a really good opportunity to use contrast to our advantage. And I personally like to assign less important text to Tableau light and more important text to Tableau bold. This dashboard is about profitability. The executive overview text is really just supplemental noise. So your noisy text that might not be as important, just dim that down and make the other text pop. Many pieces of the low-hanging fruit are just borders and grid lines, and generally speaking, you can probably just remove them altogether. Unfortunately, those row dividers, borders, grid lines, things like that are not a workbook level setting, so you have to go and do this sheet by sheet. But I promise it will be worth it and provide a much better experience for your users. If you were to keep those borders and those grid lines, remember that one to the right theory. It's likely going to work just as well with borders and grid lines as it does with font color. If we move on to the summary numbers section of the dashboard across the top, we're going to employ the same methodology that we employed with the dashboard title. We're going to take our font and move it from the left-hand side, one to the right, which will create a more pleasing font for a dark dashboard. We're going to alternate color to provide a better experience. We're doing a dimmed down version of white for our measure names and a brighter version of white for our measure values, because the measure value is actually the more important piece of data. And we're going to alternate our weights to let the data stand out. This really highlights what's important, the data itself. So now we can clearly see these big ass numbers across the top and their supporting text if we want to know what it is. But the numbers are what's important, and that's what we can see. So these tricks aren't really tricks. They're just simple tips to enhance the defaults. Let's cruise through some more examples. As we move on, we can quickly get rid of that ugly map border, as it was clearly an eyesore. And these borders that come with Tableau and just appear when we're building our visualizations are designed to help provide focus to these individual representations of data, but we can provide that same focus effect with an underrated feature that we'll discuss on an upcoming slide. And while we're at it, why don't we just speed up the entire process and configure some of the workbook level settings. If you went to your format menu and picked workbook, you can actually just do a lot of this in advance if you're going to use a dark dashboard. Take all your text and just move it one to the right. Like I said, it's going to be defaulted to the black shades. We can just move it one to the right and we'll get a better experience at the default level than we would if we just turned on our dashboard and accepted what was already there. So if you're planning on using a dark background, do yourself a favor and employ this one to the right theory across the board. And maybe just remove all of those lines in advance, because you can always add them back on a case-by-case basis. So surely I'm starting to sound like a broken record, but I want you to remember these simple strategies as they apply in so many more settings than just dark dashboard design. Alternating font weights makes our titles more legible and contextual. By lightening the font of the less important text, we draw attention away. And by using a more weighted font on the important text, we draw attention in. Remember, if everything is light, then nothing is light. If everything is bold, then nothing is bold. Use varying typefaces to your advantage. Another one that isn't necessarily a dark dashboard tip is de-emphasizing our axis labels. The example you see here pushes the font all the way down to 7 pixels and is using the bottom color in the white section. As a good rule of thumb, your axis labels should probably be darker than the rest of your text, but not so dark that they aren't readable. I don't know if any of you on the call have ever read Storytelling with Data, but this principle is echoed over and over and over again. We push less important items to the background, and in doing so, you let your data visualization stand out. What's really important here is the area chart. It's not that this was 2017. It's not that the value was $40,000. It's the data itself. We want to look at the spike, and then we want to validate it against the axis. We don't need the axis to shine. Another one, which is again, not a dark dashboarding tip necessarily, but a tip and a hill that I'm willing to die on, is padding. If you take away one tip from this whole talk, it should be this: pad every single object. You probably don't love when someone is all up in your personal space. Your worksheets don't love it either. Your filters don't love it either. Your titles don't love it either. Padding worksheets on your dashboard is an example of an effective use of white space, or black space in this context. White space helps ensure focus, readability, and aids in the overall understanding. Whitespace acts as the borders we removed earlier in the presentation. With more room to breathe, your individual representations are segmented into focused areas without requiring the aid of a clunky border. So after we've fixed all these common dark dashboard issues and employ some methodologies that should be employed regardless of background color, we're left with this new and improved dashboard. We now have a readable contextual dashboard title, readable column headers, readable measure values with alternating sizes and weights to provide clarity. We killed the sheet border and the useless map border. We have readable contextual worksheet titles, readable headers that pop. We removed the useless grid lines, added another improved title, improved the remaining headers, removed the rest of the grid lines, and de-emphasized all our axes to let the data shine. And let's take a look at the full transformation. We started with an out-of-the-box, run-of-the-mill Tableau dashboard. Nothing wrong with it, but nothing special either. We turned out the lights, and we got a damn mess. And that's probably being too generous. And after minimal effort, applying some simple tricks, we ended up with a more elegant, more inviting, and frankly, a much cooler dashboard. Let's take a quick look at the before and after. It really is amazing how much of a difference a tiny bit of design thinking can impact an entire dashboard. We have a title with alternating font weights, highlighting the most important text and de-emphasizing the less important text. We have worksheets with alternating font sizes and weights across the board, bringing focus to our most important numbers and not supporting text. We have absolutely zero clutter in the form of lines and borders, and we're using padding on every object in the dashboard to improve the readability and provide a more welcoming experience. And with that, let's just move on to review. I'm going to pound these concepts into your head one more time. One to the right. Tableau defaults to the black spectrum for text. Just move those selections one shade to the right for black dashboards. Pure white is usually too high contrast for consumption. You don't normally throw pure black on a white dashboard, do you? De-emphasize to emphasize. Direct the user's eyes where you need it to go. De-emphasizing less important elements helps the more important elements shine. Use white or black space to aid understanding and navigation. You create a natural separation with padding, and you can avoid using ugly borders. Use contrasting text to reduce eye strain and provide focus. Again, contrasting elements provide a clear, focused experience. Use your dark background as an avenue to explore color. Dark backgrounds play well with almost the entire color spectrum, and they give you access to colors that light dashboards can't support. Think about like pastels, lighter shades of blue, green, yellow. They're going to pop more on a dark dashboard than they would on a white dashboard. And source these colors from your background. Do you have a deep blue dashboard? Well, maybe you select the same exact color for your font and then use the scale slider to pick a lighter or darker shade in the same exact family. And that'll provide a cohesive experience. Dark dashboards can feel more elegant, which can reflect well on you. Most dashboard developers can execute on a light dashboard, but executing on a dark one might just make you stand out from the crowd. And lastly, why be like everyone else? Dark dashboards run outside the status quo. Push yourself out of your comfort zone, even if it isn't immediately accepted in your workplace or in public. If nothing else, you'll grow your Tableau skills in the process. And with that, I just want to leave you with a couple quotes, and you can decide which one you like best. Eric Weiner said, "All genuinely creative ideas are initially met with rejection, since they necessarily threaten the status quo. An enthusiastic reception for a new idea is a sure sign that is not original." And this is kind of something that I applied to dark dashboards. There's quite a few people out there that don't like them. They won't do them. And they're just generally not going to go for that. And the next quote I want to leave you with is, "Sometimes people just think you're smart if you question the status quo. So, hell, if you want to build a dashboard, make it dark, and people might think you're a little smarter than you actually are. And sometimes That gets you somewhere. And with that, I just want to say thank you for closing out this conference with me. I hope that it was an enjoyable experience and you go out there and try something new with your next Tableau Public dashboard.
Curtis, that was amazing. Thanks so much for sharing those tips. A little jealous here because this is I've come over to the dark side since joining Pluralsight. I do a lot of dark visualizations. We actually have this. It's almost like we kind of keep the brand, but you've given away a lot of the secrets, which they're amazing. They're amazing.
Yeah, you're welcome. Thanks for having me.
I'm gonna check to see if there's any questions too from the audience. I know so much it seemed easy when you explain it that way, but it takes a long time to figure this out. And I think you've kind of mastered that of making very complex things seem very simple.
You gotta stop giving me so many compliments.
Hey Curtis, this is Emily. I have a really quick question.
Sure.
So for a dark background, would you recommend just going completely black, or maybe like one shade down? Like, does it matter? Can you speak a little bit to that?
Well, I think that's a pretty subjective, although a very good question. As Caesar mentioned, we do this a lot at work, and I don't think I've built a single dashboard that is pure black. If that answers your question from my perspective. And I could give you the exact color code. I always use 181818 instead of black. I don't know. I just like it a little less black than black. And I don't think that's a requirement. I don't think you need to do that. I would just encourage, like I briefly mentioned in my presentation, if you were going to go with pure black, your contrast is going to be even higher with the lighter fonts. So if you were going to go pure black, just really make sure you avoid pure white in most situations. And it's just a little bit easier to avoid that kind of eye-straining contrast when you go with a little lighter shade of black.
Cool. Thank you so much for that.
Mm-hmm.
I was seeing something here. Let's see. Vince is saying, as a user, I think it might be nice to have a dark theme for mobile layouts and a light theme for desktop.
Yeah, that's a great point, Vince. I think we've seen something in the community lately with Ken posting his night mode trick that he did with his, what do you call it, like a rose diagram or something like that.
Yes.
Wind rose thing. So yeah, that's something I've been thinking about for a long time. I really agree with you. I like consuming things on my phone better in night mode. So, and this is actually one of the biggest reasons for one of my top Tableau requests, and that's just to give me the power to put anything into a text value, right? So if I flip a button, I want to set all the different text values that are available in Tableau with a parameter value. So maybe I could build a night mode a lot easier that way. So if I do, A or B, I can send that text value to wherever Tableau accepts text, and we could build like a much easier solution for night mode, even though there have been some really creative things in the community, but I just want things to be easy. But long-winded answer, I think you're totally right. Would be great to have that, and we do have a few mobile dashboards at Pluralsight that are dark, and they've worked really well so far.
Katie's asking, where's my team? Allow parameters and access titles, eh?
Hey, Katie, allow parameters in everywhere. That's
agreed. All the places.
Oh yeah, all the places.
Love it. All right, folks. Well, that is awesome. Curtis, thanks so much. And just the way you broke it down, love it. Some of the just time-saving tips. It's just, just go to the right. Just go to the right. This is really indicative of spending a lot of time, preparing for Iron Viz and whatnot. So it's amazing to watch you work. Thanks for coming on.
Thank you, Caesar. I appreciate it.